Hello and be welcome. My name is Christian and today I'm going to be talking to you about this book in particular. And not only about this book, it's more in fact about what is the book or what the book talks about. Now this book it is called Flatland, a romance between dimensions. This book treats a lot of topics that are pretty interesting, but the most interesting thing that it takes and it explains is the different dimensions that exist in the world. Now, it explains the three dimensions that we already know, that it's the first dimension, the second dimension, and also the three dimension, that we all know as 1D, 2D, and 3D. Now, this book explains the first dimension just as a straight line. If we want to explain a little bit more about the dimensions, we can see, for example, about this line of a book. If we want to see a first dimension or we want to try to understand the first dimension, it's when you try to move from left to right, and that's the only move that you can do. So then this is a first dimension world where you can only go from here to here, from here to here. So that's the first dimension that all we know, and also we as a three-dimension people can observe. Now, there doesn't only exist the first dimension. You can also understand and we also can perceive what it is a second dimension. A second dimension, it's every surface that we can find in mathematics that it has an x and a y axis. So we can see here that there is an y axis and also an x axis, right? So we can understand a little bit more about a second dimension because we can understand and we can see and perceive objects that can move from here to here and also to here and here. That is what the book explains a little bit more because it explains to you how the two-dimension people that they're called the Flatland world and the Flatlanders, all this book it is about people that lives only on the second dimension and how they can observe only things that are on the first dimension. And this is pretty logical because we as three-dimensional people, we can only observe things that are on the second dimension, and the three-dimensional people can only observe things that are on the first dimension. And that is subsequently one to another into another. And if we want to imagine a fourth dimension, the fourth-dimension people will only be able to understand and to perceive the three dimensions. Now, this is pretty interesting because with this information, we can know that we as three-dimensional people can observe things that only are on a second dimension world. Now, what about the fourth dimension? What about the fifth dimension? And that is a little bit about what the book is trying to explain to you and to be talking to you about. That's why I do really recommend to read the book to try to understand a little bit more about the physics and also a little bit more about how the dimensions work on the world. Thank you very much and hope you really understood and that you enjoyed a little bit about the video. See you soon.